Just checking. Okay. You haven't taught that before? Or is it just common sense, you? I don't know. Okay. Without further ado, these questions are all rated with an E, P, or an I. I don't know if any of your other AP exams are rated the same way. You let me know. Have you guys heard of an E, P, and an I before? No? Okay. E means essentially correct, which is pretty much correct. P is partial credit, partially correct, and I is incorrect. There are different pieces to these. You are going to write an E, P, or an I next to your part for whatever you got for this particular section. Does that make sense? Okay, I have highlighted the most important bits. For number 1A, it is essentially correct if you have at least 3 of the following 4 components. You need to directly compare the center for the 2 distributions. That would look something like the median for country A is less than the median for country B. It's going to have some kind of comparison word in there, and you're going to refer to the medians. Median is your only option here because they're box plots. Okay, directly compare the spread. Your options are either IQR or range. The spread of country A was it greater? Yes, greater than in the range, but the IQR was less. Does that make sense? It depends on if you chose range or IQR. Range for country A was greater, but IQR was less. You should use IQR if you can. Indicate that the gas mileage in country A is an outlier. You need to say that there's a high outlier in country A. And then, so if you have all 3 of those, you get an E already. But you also need to say that something about country A, country B, and something about gas mileage or miles per gallon. You get an E if you have 3 of the 4 of those. You get a P if you have 2 of the 4 of those, and anything less than that is an I. If you did not do this problem, that's easy. That's an I. And you guys can whisper to each other to make sure that you're seeing the same things. That's fine. I'm not going to be irritated, I promise. Okay. Yes. Yes, you can write on them. Interestingly enough, there is no points for shape. However, you should have said something about roughly symmetric and left skewed. It was not left skewed, it was right skewed. Country A was right skewed, country B was roughly symmetric. They didn't actually grade that though. Okay, B. You need all 3 of these components to get an E. Country A should be greater than 18. You need to say that 18 was the median. If you didn't say 18 was the median, you're down to a P already. Provides a reasonable justification for the relationship between the mean and median based on a right skewed distribution or the expectation that the outlier will pull the mean above the median or pull the mean into the tail. Something like that. You need all 3 of those. If you have number 1 and either 2 or 3, you get a P. And if you don't have number 1 at all, that's an I. Okay. C. And this one's spicy. For an E, you have to have all 4 of these things. You need to say 26 miles per gallon is the range of the combined data set. You need to show your work saying 40 minus 14. You need to say 24 miles per gallon is the median of the combined data set. And you need to say something like half of the combined data values are 24 or less than 24 and half of the combined values are greater than 24. I said 100 values are above 24 and 100 values are below 24. This was, I think, the hardest part of the whole set of FRQs. This part right here, 3 and 4. If you have 2 or 3 of the 4 components, you get a P. And if you don't have any of that stuff, you get an I. Okay, quickly. This is a very important point. Range is a number. Range is not a range. Okay, range is a statistic. You have to subtract to get credit for the range. You can't just say 40 to 14 to 40. That is not correct for range. Range is a number, which is max minus min. Just very poorly named. Okay. If you have all 3 parts with ease, you get a 4 on this FRQ. Put your score at the top of the page. All 3 of them are E's, you get a 4. 2 E's and a P, you get a 3. 2 E's and an I. 1 E, 2 P's or 1 P. Oh goodness, everything but like 1 E and 2 I's or 3 I's looks like a 2. Okay, now again, we're looking for half credit, but if you only did 3 of them, you're looking for full credit. So the whole point of this is to sort of see where you fall out, how much of it you actually need to do. If some of it's wrong, you have to do more. You guys understand what you're picking up what I'm laying down there? Also, some things they're super picky about, some things they're not, which is kind of irritating. Okay, number 2. Number 2A has 3 components. You have to say not appropriate for method 1. You have to say one of these things. It's not representative, not random, or a convenience sample. Any one of those 3 things satisfies number 2. And number 3, you need to include 2 of the following. You need to say something about regions, something about cabbage fields, or 25 regions in the field, or something about cabbage plants damaged by aphids. So there's your context part. Okay. If you have all 3 of those things, and in this part, number 3, you only need 2. You only need to say region and cabbage fields, or region and cabbage plants, or aphids damaged by plants, something context-wise. If you have all 3 of those, that's an E. You have to have 1 apparently to get a P. So if you have 1 and either 2 or 3, that's a P. Or if you have 2 and 3, but you don't make a decision, you don't say no, that's also a P, and then anything else is an I. How are you enjoying my flare pens? They're fun. It's fun. Rainbow grading. Okay. B. 3 components for an E. Overestimate. Something about it being the row closest to the river. And then something about aphid damage being greater when you're closer to the river. I don't know if you guys did that after I was looking through them. I feel like you had 2 of them, but not the third. 2 of them is a P. None of that stuff is an I. Because I saw a lot of them that said overestimate, and then I saw a lot of them that said region row E is closest to the river, but I didn't see anything too much about aphids. damage being greatest for closest to the river. This is College Board being picky, but that's why we're doing this. Okay, C. 4 components. Describes a random selection process that indicates the grouping used for the strata by rows. Okay, you could use the hat method. When I say random selection process, you can use the hat method, the table method, or the random number generator. Did everyone use the hat method? If you did this problem, I always go hat method. So, yeah, Mr. Knight?
I use the hat method. It's a very effective method of the city, you know.
Is it? Okay. Describes how to correctly implement a random selection process for which the selection of regions within each stratum is equally likely. Okay, that's looking for your 5 sheets of identical slips of paper, something like that, or 5 numbers or numbers 1 through 5 or something like that. Equally likely. If you're doing the hat method, though, you need to be very careful. Make sure that you're talking about identical slips of paper. Do you know what I'm talking about? Labeled. Independent. You need to say something about with replacement if you're so I sort of got around that on mine. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a giant nerd and I did this all out pretty. So in mine, instead of doing with replacement, I then labeled row B 6 through 10 and row C 11 through 15 and row D 16 through 20 and row E 21 to 25. That's how I got around the independence part for mine, but you probably just said with replacement and put the slips back in the hat, which would have been fine. And then you need to say something where it takes out 1 from each row. So select 1 slip of paper for each row or something like that. Stratum. Yeah, it's the stratum is the rows right there. See how it says strata by rows. Okay. If you have 2 or 3 of the 4 of those, that's a P. Otherwise, it's an I. Really?
Yeah. I had
Are you okay? So it looks like in the notes, another idea would have been a 5-sided dice. But random number generator, slips of paper in a hat, those things are all good. Okay. All 3 parts essentially correct is a 4. 2 E's and 1 P is a 3. Most of the stuff in the middle is a 2. 1 E and 2 I's is a 1, and anything less than that. What I'm getting from this is I feel like when you guys are taking the AP test, you should try them all, try to get half credit on them all, because it's really hard to get it perfect. Other than the 4-step process one, I feel like that one is probably perfect for everybody. But are you guys seeing how picky they are? Yeah, okay. But that's why we're doing this, so you can know ahead of time. Okay. Number 3, and I would say this is probably the one that most people did not do if you did not do one. Part A, correct probability was 0.1. Part B, oh wait, okay. 4 components. Part A, answer. Part A, work. Part A2, answer, which is 0.01. Part A, work. If you have all 4 of those, that's an E. Okay, now let's talk about how this problem works. There was 100 rock songs out of 1,000 total songs, so that's a middle school probability problem. Rock songs over total, that first part. The second part though, both rock songs, you have one and another, and means time. So you have one rock song and another rock song, that means time, so you take your answer from the previous one, multiply them together. Quick note, on your MCQ, did you guys see the one that says both the same color yet? Did you guys get to that problem where it says what's the probability they're both the same color? It's like it's the first, in the first 10, literally in the first 10. Okay, okay. That's the same as this, except for there's multiple, so you have to add them together. So it's like yellow times yellow, plus orange times orange, plus green times green. I don't know what the colors are, but that's how you do it. Just when you get there. Probability, we need to go over it. Guess what we're going to do right after this? Yay. Okay. B. Okay. You need 3 of the 4 in part B. You need random variable is the number of rock songs played in 1 hour. You should have that equal to a letter. I would use X. X equals the number of rock songs played in 1 hour. You need to say that it's binomial. You need to say that number of fixed trials is 20 and the probability is 0.1. And I believe that there's a bunch of different things. You can say this somewhere in the problem. It doesn't have to be right there. Also, you can get away with writing X is binomial and P in this shorthand notation if you like. Oh, you can also say words out of 20 songs. And then B2 is the expected value, which is N times P, which is 2 songs. So expected value and work. If you have 3 of the 4 of those, you get an E. They're more generous in this problem for some reason. One thing I wanted to point out that you might have forgotten is that in the middle of your yellow sheet, the formula for mean of a binomial, standard deviation of a binomial. Remember, expected value and mean are the same thing. So if it's asking for expected value, you have the formula right here. Expected value is the same thing. Here's geometric. Okay. All right, so that's B. Okay. Now C. You need all 4. Great. Correct probability. The correct probability was 0.133. Work for the correct probability. So for you guys, I bet most of you have this. Okay, now if you have this, you need the random variable notation in the front to get full credit. So you should have something like probability X is greater than or equal to 4 equals 1 minus binom CDF 20, 0.103. Notice how theirs is labeled. You should have it labeled somewhere in the problem. It doesn't have to be right in the calculator stuff. Okay. Part C2, you should have a no. And you should have an explanation. For our class, we say something like, since our p-value of 0.133 is greater than any alpha, our biggest alpha is 0.1, right? 0.133 is greater than any alpha we would use. Then we fail to reject, and there's not enough evidence. Something like that. I would use my conclude from a hypothesis test instead of what they're doing here. Okay. 2 or 3 of those 4 is a P. Anything less than that is an I. Again, I feel like if you were not going to do a problem, this would have been the one. But I don't know, that's just my feeling. Now, on the other hand, I feel like everyone did number 4. Here's the scoring for number 3. I think it's the same as the others. Okay. Number 4. I have high hopes for number 4. Okay. First thing you need to have on number 4 is say it's a one sample z-test for P. Somewhere in your problem, you need to say one sample z-test for P. That's why I tell you to state the inference method in the plan. It doesn't have to be at the beginning. We put ours in the plan. Null hypothesis is 0.22. Correct direction for the alternative hypothesis, which is greater than. And something about context for the parameter. So P equals the true proportion of students at Karen's high school that use the application at least once per week. If you have all 4 of those, that's an E. 3 of those is a P. Ooh, that's strict. Anything less than that's an I. Yes, honey.
If you didn't specify Karen's high school, does that still count?
Hold on, let's see. They give me all kinds of notes down at the bottom. Doesn't say. I think it's probably okay, but this is just a learning moment. Like just, when you're doing that, it's your time to shine. So write everything. I think if I had to, let me see if I did it. I did. I think you probably go here, random sample of students from her school. And so I think that's probably where I would have gotten that. Okay. All right. Section 2 checks the independence condition. You need to say they're lumping these together. So it's random and the 10% condition. So it looks like they bundled randomness and the 10% condition into one of the components. And then the second component is n times p is greater than or equal to 10, and n times 1 minus p is greater than or equal to 10, which is 28.6 and 101.4. Make sure you're multiplying by p and not p hat in these. That would be wrong. 3 is the z statistic, which was 1.99. And then the 4th is the correct p-value, which was 0.023. So this is all math, basically. So you've got random, 10% is one component. The normal condition, the large counts condition, is the second component. The statistic z equals 1.99 is the third component. And then the 4th component is the correct p-value. If you have 2 or 3 of those, that's a P. 1 of those, that's an I. I'm really hoping everyone in the class chose to do this one. Okay, now part C not part C. Section 3 is the conclusion. Two components. You need to compare the p-value to alpha. So since our p-value is less than 0.05, you need to provide a correct decision about the null hypothesis. Since it's less, we reject the hope. And then state a conclusion in context in terms of the alternative hypothesis. There is convincing evidence that the proportion of students is greater than 0.22. If you have both of those two things, that's an E. One of those two things is a P. None of those things is a not. This is probably the most important thing I'm going to say today. If you are asked to do some calculations and you completely blank on the AP test on the do step, let's just say you know how to do the statement plan and you're like, oh crap, I don't remember what to do for the calculation. I forgot all the math in the math class. That's supposed to be funny. You should, noticing this information here, fake a p-value or fake an interval. Just come up with something. Something reasonable. This is a proportion test. No p-values are not greater than 1, right? So just go with, say on the test, literally in the do step. I forgot how to do the do step. Conclude, say, I don't know how to calculate this, but pretend my p-value was 0.02. 0.02 is less than 0.05, so we reject ho. You get 3 out of 4 points if you completely omit the math. Blanking on the AP test for the math, really not that bad. You still get like a 3. So what I'm telling you is, because they give you these multi-part questions, if you blank in the middle of a multi-part question, make up an answer so you can keep going. It like works every time because they can't double mark you wrong. That's not how it works. If your p-value is less than alpha, then they're going to go with your conclusion, not the correct conclusion. They will not double mark you wrong. So just improvise. Improv. Yes, and I don't know. Let's just all go with 0.02. If you get a p-value, you don't know how to calculate, I'm just like, my teacher told me to use 0.02 because I forgot how to calculate it. Like literally, just write that. They'll giggle and then they'll give you the right score. Like, I promise you. Make it up. Okay. Number 5. I feel like if I had to guess, people started number 5 and then bailed in the middle. Am I wrong? How wrong am I? Yeah. Oh. Number 4, same scoring. I think they all have the same scoring except maybe number 6. Okay. Number 5A has 4 components. It looks like you only need 3 of them to get an E. Part A, you need to say that the correct probability is 0.34. And you need to show your work. So you need to show the adding of those 2 decimals. For those of you that are, efficient with your writing, you're going to have to go against your efficiency there. Okay, part 2, calculate the mean of 3.1 and then work. And by the way, you only need to show the first 2 and the last one for full credit there. You don't have to show them all. And even if you do L1, L2 life hack for this, just show the first 2 and the last one. If you forgot how to do this, this is top times the bottom plus 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 top times the bottom. And I noticed some of my really more advanced students in 5th period, I didn't hear it so much out of you guys, but out of them, No, they were saying, no, they were saying, I think they said something incorrect.
Oh.
They jumped directly to thinking that it was binomial and thinking that they had to do like binomes for these. When they give you a table, don't jump to the conclusions of that it's binomial, geometric, or any of that. You have a table. Go off of the table. They were trying to make it more complicated, is what I was trying to say, and this is a simple problem. I didn't hear, like I said, you guys just went to the table. I didn't hear any of that complicatedness. Yes, honey. Nope. Doesn't say anything about that, but do it. I mean, get in the habit. Two of those is a P. And so if you just have 0.34 with those two decimals added together, you get a P. Nice. Nice. I like it. Okay. B, you need 4 components. Null hypothesis equals 2.9. Alternative hypothesis is not equal to 2.9. You need to have context by saying something about true mean and houses. And then type 1 error in context. So type 1 error would be determining that the population mean number of bedrooms in newly built houses from country B is not equal to 2.9 when it is in fact 2.9. So remember, type 1 error, you cover up the first one, you write that in words. The sample led you to believe that the mean of the bedrooms is not 2.9 when it is actually 2.9. Remember our muscle memory with the type 1 and type 2 errors. 3 of the 4 of those is a P. Anything less than that's an I. Are we getting close? I feel like I'm talking too much. But the fact that I told you to make up a p-value, golden. Worth all the time. Okay. Yes. I think it has to be the value in this one because I think they were specific that it was 2.9 bedrooms. Pretty sure. I'm reading down here. Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, they all have 2.9s in them. What? Well, what did you have? Okay, did you have all 3 of these things correct? Did you have the null alternative hypotheses and the context? You did, then that would be a P. Because you got all the rest of it. Okay. C, 2 components. Conclusion consistent with the alternative hypothesis. 2.9 is not contained within the interval. That's this bit. The null hypothesis should be rejected. There is convincing evidence and then context. By the way, on your quiz from yesterday, this is what I was hoping you would do. Look back in the interval. I was not expecting anyone to do a full hypothesis test in that teeny tiny space below the interval where it says based on your answer to part A. And all you had to do was look back in the interval and see if it was in there or not. So there was no ask for a hypothesis test there. You just look to see if the number's in the interval. Some people did a full 4-step process in that little teeny tiny. It's good. It's good. It's good. Okay. Only one of the two of those is a P. And anything else than that's an I. Looks like it's the same grading for number 5. Okay, we're going to grade number 6, and then I'm going to ask you to put these in a pile with the flare pens on top, and you're going to give those back to me. I do not want you to take them with you. That is why I'm saying this now. I'm going to give them back to you. I just want them to not be lost. And then as soon as I'm done talking, grab whiteboards and markers. But number 6, part A. Comparison of p-value to alpha, less than alpha, and correct decision about the null hypothesis. P-value of 0.002 is less than 0.05. Reject the hoe. States a conclusion in context consistent with the alternative hypothesis. This has happened 3 times on this test, by the way. I don't know if you noticed the conclude statement of a hypothesis test has been 3 times. I think that's great. That means less to remember. One of the two of those is a P, otherwise an I. Part B, 2 components. You need to say that the groups were independent or they were not paired in a meaningful way. You're looking for the word independent there. That is a keyword that will get you out of anything else in the rest of the, if they see the word independent, they're going to make a check mark and you're done with that. And then you need to say something about the random assignment or separating the 2 situations. So you need to say something like the random assignment created 2 independent groups. That would satisfy both of those. If you have one or the 2, okay, what is this? If you have one of the 2, you get a P, or if you state that a 2-sample t-test is appropriate because different samples were used, but does not explicitly state that the children is cool. I don't know why that's any different than what we said before, but anyway, you need to say something about the random assignment process and something about the groups being independent. I don't know. Huh. That was weird. Okay, anyway, part C, 2 components. The correct value of Cohen's D, which is 0.63. And then the level of practical and with work shown. And level of practical importance means that it's somewhat meaningful or practical based on the table. If you have only one of the 2 of those, that's a P, otherwise that's an I. That's the easiest one we've had to grade so far. I love question 6. I have something to say about question 6 when we're done, but okay. Part D. Wait, was that C already? Okay, I don't know what it's just going too fast. Okay, Cohen's D would be smaller. Provide a reason. The reason I'm hoping you provide is that the standard deviations are in the denominator. Something about numbers being in the denominator get bigger. That means the value gets smaller. That's what I was hoping for. And then decrease in Cohen's D would indicate that there's less practical importance. If you have all 3 of those, that's an E. 2 of the 3 of those is a P. Anything else is an I. Now this guy has 4 parts. this problem, number 6. As I said, I think this is the only one that scored differently. And what you do is you take each E as a 1 point and each P as a half point and add them up. So in this problem, there's 4 different pieces you graded. Each E counts as 1, each P counts as half, and then you total that up and put it at the top. Okay, before I stop my video, I realize I'm slightly late. I want to say something about question 6. College Board specifically publishes that question 6 has nothing to do with the curriculum. Every single time, they say question 6 is outside the curriculum. That's why it's Cohen's D. We never learned about Cohen's D. Okay, but every single one of these I've seen is literally plugging in numbers into a formula they give you. Do not be afraid of number 6. It's one of the easiest ones. If you could get past the reading, it's literally plugging numbers in. Like, that's it. So on that one, look for formulas to plug things in. But it's not going to be anything you recognize. It's just a formula they give you and you plug stuff into it. Also, I didn't know that Zoe had a coefficient. Did you guys know that Zoe had a coefficient? Does she know she has a coefficient? We should tell her. We should tell her.